idea. Why is meditation not getting you enlightened or spiritually awake? What is alternative to meditation? A possible alternative, as there are always many ways of doing things in life. There are people who have been meditating for a very long time. And they enjoy it. While they are meditating, they're enjoying peace and well-being. And when they're not meditating, they're just getting back to their usual self. The I, or self, stays intact. And there is a big difference or gap between the time they spend meditating and the rest of the time in so-called everyday life. Although there are benefits to meditation in itself, even the way they are doing it, they are, on the other hand, not really getting any closer to disappearance of I, to enlightenment itself, to spiritual awakening, or at least the start of spiritual awakening, the start of enlightenment. Why is that? Why is meditation not getting you enlightened? And what is a possible alternative to it? What sort of practice can we do regularly to get ourselves ready and more compliant for enlightenment or spiritual awakening? Now, what can possibly go wrong with meditation as a tool for spiritual awakening? Well, there are a few things, and I'm just going to state them in no particular order. Number one, a meditation in a classical sense, it requires a certain type of environment, seclusion, non-disturbance, where you go to a certain spot in a certain place where you're not going to be disturbed, where you sit or whatever else in a certain position, and so on, when you close your eyes or not close your eyes, and so on and so on. So it's like a lab environment. It's an environment that's actually not the environment that you get in your everyday life while going about your daily activities, but something completely different. You sort of have to take yourself out of this so-called everyday life to perform a so-called meditation. And when the time you're meditating is up, then you re-enter the so-called everyday life. And you're no more equipped for dealing with it. You had your time off, you enjoyed it, and then you go back and things are just pretty much the same, more or less. Number two, the way that people meditate, in vast majority of cases that I have come across and read about or heard about, is that they sort of observe the thoughts. Now, the act of observing in itself is a mental activity. You cannot observe without being mentally active. There is a certain way of mentally doing things, following things, noticing things, observing, as the name tells us. So it's a mental activity. And it does nothing for detaching yourself from mental activities. Because as we know, spiritual awakening or enlightenment is a state that is completely away from mental activities, away from mental processing, beyond, if you want, mental processing. That's why it's so different. That's why it's original. That's why it's a natural state of mind. And observing is a mental process. It's a mental activity. And it does nothing to go beyond mental activity or to bypass it. So many people who observe the thoughts while meditating, which is usually the way people meditate, when they get back to the normal life, the attachment to the thoughts and the flow of thoughts can be even much stronger than usual for people who don't meditate, because they are really making this mental activity or mental processing even stronger, even more explicit by observing. And they also create this big gap between the time they sort of meditate in peace and undisturbed and so on, observe the thoughts, and then the so-called real life, where the mental processing is full on. They are attaching to the thoughts full on, identifying with the thoughts full on. They're getting overwhelmed in a so-called real life, in so-called real situations, while they're going about their daily chores or activities. Because not many people can sit all day and meditate. Even people who live in seclusion do not sit all day and meditate, but do other things too. You see, the spiritual awakening, or enlightenment as we call it, the process of it is an absolute unity of everything. There is no gap. There is no this or that. Everything happens at the same time. And there is no observer and the observed. Everything is one. Everything is a unity. Also, which is very important to point out, is the change in the vibration or the energy field. As long as we are experiencing the processed, mentally processed existence through mental activity, we are far away from the source. We are far, far away from the direct energy field and the vibration of it and the strength of it. The vibration on the level of mental activity is almost non-existent. It's like running on empty. The energy level is very, very low. But when we go beyond mental activity and connect directly to the source and get much closer and then closer and closer to the source of everything, to the original vibration, to the energy field in its center, where it's strong, where it's luminous, where it's vibrating very strongly, the experience is completely different. It's completely beyond any mental processing, any mental definitions of time or space, and it's continuous. And the energy level or the vibration, the strength of it that we are reaching by getting closer and closer to the source, by going beyond, completely beyond mental processing, is just something absolutely uncomparable to the running on empty that we experience while engaging in mental processing, which is just the usual way of life for us humans, more and more. So there are many things about meditation and meditating in a way of observing the thoughts and engaging in mental processing, then in its nature is not really compatible with preparing yourself for getting enlightened or spiritually awake. And the practice of non-attachment, which is based on following the breath or the mantra, and whenever the attachment to the thought occurs, there is stepping into the thought, looking straight into the thought and see it disappear, disintegrate completely into nothingness, emptiness, as it is. There is nothing there. And even while practicing, there is nothing there. There is a following the breath, there is a mantra, and when the thought comes and there is a habitual attachment to it, there is stepping into it, looking straight into it, and seeing it disappear completely. As the thoughts are empty, there is nothing to them, completely empty. And the channel to the source, to the center of this energy field that is existence, is open and is kept open. And the vibration is high. Illumination and the sense of well-being and balance and complete peace. Now, obviously, everyone is different. There are people who get enlightened through meditation, through observing, and there are people who do not get enlightened from meditation, no matter for how long they've been doing it. So if this is something that you've been doing for a long time, but not getting anywhere near spiritual awakening or enlightenment, or not at the pace that you feel it's possible, please consider the alternative, a possible alternative to it. And if you're interested in this topic, we'll be discussing it in more detail this Sunday on our weekly live session of Practical Awakening. Thank you, as usual. Talk soon. Take care.